Welcome to Prepared Enough, a podcast for moms who want to lighten the mental load of motherhood and create homes where kids can thrive. I'm your host, Natasha Mila, former teacher, mom of four, and firm believer that a well-prepared home can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. During each episode, we'll explore simple ways to design organized, intentional spaces and rhythms that build your child's responsibility and bring more ease into your day. So if you're ready to create a home that works with you and not against you, you're in the right place. Hit follow and let's get started. Hello, everybody. It is the beginning-ish of August here, so we are in full summer and full back to school mode. It's a weird time of year where you're thinking about both. You're like, this is the best time of the summer. The weather is warm where we are still, and also we have a couple weeks to get ready for school. So we are in a weird time. But it's fine. It's good. It's also the time of the summer where we all get a little antsy because we've gone like 2 full months now with a loosey-goosey schedule and not a lot of structure. And so everybody's kind of ready to get back into a structure, whether you go to school outside of your home or you have school in your home, or you're just slowly easing into the fall where you're not outside 100% of the day and doing kind of whatever you want. So whatever it may be, you probably have a little bit more structure coming your way sometime soon. Okay, today we are going to talk about school drop zones. Now, you often hear the term like school, you know what, actually back up. I'm going to back up for a second. I have to just explain myself. I'm going to say hello because I want to just explain the structure of the way this podcast is going to go. So every other week, I am going to do like a quote unquote real podcast episode where I'm going to do kind of what you've been used to seeing in the past, where I have a topic. Like today, we're talking about the school's drop zone, right? And so we're going to have a topic, we're going to talk about it, we're going to give you some like practical advice and, things that you can implement into your own home. And then in between those weeks, so every other week again, but the opposite weeks in a month, I'm just going to do kind of like off a whim. What is the phrase? On a whim? On a whim? Is that what you say? We're going to do like on a whim. I should stop saying that because I don't even know if that's right. We're going to do like these episodes that I'm copycatting kind of Rachel Autry, and she does, her podcast is called Real Talk, but every so often, I think it's like every Friday maybe or something, she does these fun, short little episodes where she just records like 10-minute podcast episode on her phone and just quick uploads it. And it's really casual about her week and it's just fun to listen to. Probably I enjoy it a little bit more than somebody that was still like really into social media. I feel like for me, I like listened to a couple of them and I was like, oh, there's some things and tidbits in here that I can take away. And also it was just kind of like a fun, casual, like hearing about her week. And I like it. So we're going to do something kind of similar, except, I'm from Wisconsin. So I am going to call it, I think she calls those episodes of hers like oh, and also episodes or something like that. And so we're going to call it, because, we're in the Midwest here, we're going to call it, all right, well, episodes. So that's what they're going to be. They should be fun. And I am a talker, so, I can come on and talk about whatever, and it's hopefully going to be kind of beneficial to you, and also just kind of a fun, casual episode that I'm not going to like prepare much for, except for like thinking of some ideas in my head before kind of opening up my phone app and clicking record, because I'm not going to really edit them out too much. Okay, so we are going to now get back to our actual podcast episode. This is going to be like a school drop zone episode. And then next week you'll hear the casual episode, and the following week we'll get back into something more structured. Okay, as we're talking about getting more structured and back to school mode. All right. So, school drop zone. You often hear the term school drop zone when we talk about back to school spaces. So, what is a school drop zone? well, it's just a fancy way of saying an area where the kids can put all of their school specific stuff that's coming and going, like anything that you have coming home from school and leaving to go to school. So for us, I mean, it does kind of make sense to have this area wherever you enter your house. So it might, maybe you enter in the front entryway, maybe you have a back entryway, a garage, etc. I have seen people put hooks and like shelves inside of a closet or something, or a pantry if that's close to where they enter. It just kind of, that's what works for them. It just really depends on the space of your house, but it does make sense to kind of have this area wherever you're going to be coming into your house after the school day, because you're going to be dropping everything when you kind of come back inside. Anyway, wherever you have it, you're going to need a space for backpacks and folders and some other things, right? So what kinds of things do we need to create a space for so that your kids can take responsibility and function and stay organized and not forget things they need for school the following day, right? So there are kind of two parts of a school day when we think about this area of our home. There is the preparing to leave and get out the door for school, and then there's the coming home from school. And it seems counterintuitive to talk about the coming home from school part first, but I feel like it is the main piece of the puzzle, and it helps kind of propel the leaving for school part. So today we are, yes, in August, the beginning of August, talking about what you need prepared in your school drop zone for your kids to be successful each day coming home from school, even though for a lot of us, we're probably having a couple more weeks until school actually starts. So there are a few questions to ask as you kind of head into the school year and you see what is coming home this year. So we're going to start by asking some of these questions. Then we're going to figure out what you can set up right now before school starts and before you kind of really know all the answers to those questions that we're going to ask. And then we'll chat about what you can adjust as the school year begins and you see what's kind of working and what's not. So, questions to ask. What is coming home from school? Most likely, you're going to have things like shoes, outerwear. Now, it depends on and the season that you're in, not the season that your life is in, but the actual weather season. So other outerwear that you might have coming to and from school are going to be like sweatshirts, rain gear, snow gear, hats, mittens, etc. So you're going to have to a solution for that. And maybe you just kind of tackle that as it comes this year and as the seasons kind of change. But so you don't have to think too hard about that part. But you're probably going to have things coming home like shoes, outerwear, obviously backpacks, folders, paperwork, homework, artwork, or little notes from friends, etc. School library books, lunchbox, snack box or bag or whatever you send a snack with, water bottles, and maybe you have technology coming home. So then you're kind of going to think, first you're thinking, what is actually all the items that are going to be coming home with my child? And then you're going to think, how often is an item coming home and does it need to go back to school? So maybe, you got going to be brainstorming and you might not know the answer to these questions right now. Maybe you do because you have idea from the past school year, but just something to think on. Friday do you get folders sent home every day, or are you getting Friday folders, just a once a week kind of thing? Are you having once a week library books, or does your child if as soon as you return it to school, do they get to go pick out a new one? Are you having daily things like waters and lunches, etc.? So those are the first two questions. What is coming home? How often is it coming home? And then you can think what am I going to do with that item? So can that item, there's kind of two options here. Can that item stay in your child's backpack? Or is the item garbage is the third option. Is the item actual just garbage that's coming home? If it's not garbage, then can it come and stay in your child's backpack, or do you need to create a separate space for that item? So some things that you might consider keeping in the backpack are water bottles. I personally like to keep these just with our child's backpacks. So we just fill them. It's part of our after school routine. We fill our water bottles and we put them right back into our backpacks so that they're ready for the next day. Now we're lucky to be able to have a separate school water bottle. So that's just that we don't have to use that water bottle at our home. So That's something to consider. And then folders, we do keep, like, do you want to keep your folder in your backpack, or do you want to have your child kind of take that folder out? So if you have something to think of here is, if you decide to have your kid keep the folder in the backpack and with all of the paperwork and stuff inside, that means that you have to remember to go into their backpack and check their folder, which is totally fine. If you want to check their backpack every day, that's super, super fine. But personally, I would probably forget if it like it's one of those like out of sight, out of mind kind of things. And I would just, see the backpack sitting there and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll check the folder later. And then I probably just would forget on a lot of days. So I like when the folder comes home, my kids we have a spot for our folders. And then that way I know that they got a folder, because ours were kind of random. They came home sometimes, they didn't come home other times. I never really knew when they were coming home. And so we just kind of had a spot for them. If they came home, my kid put it there, and then would empty all the paperwork out, and then I would put it back in that spot empty, and she would pack it back into her backpack. So yeah, that kind of worked for us. And other things that you might want to keep in your backpack. Now, we don't keep our lunch boxes in our backpacks, but you might consider just like keeping the emptied out lunchbox in your kid's backpack if you don't have kitchen space for it. Or school technology, if you're using it for, I don't know if we don't get technology sent home yet. We don't have old kids yet or anything. So, for us, this is not really applicable, but like if you're getting a computer or iPad or something sent home from school, and that might make sense to like pull it out for whatever you need it for at home and then putting it right back into the backpack. Another thing to consider there is, will you need it to be charged? So then it might need a separate space if it has to get charged at home. And like sometimes you have school take-home bags with like activities or something in it that might be able to stay in the backpack. It just depends what you're using it for. Some things that might need a separate space. Again, you might need water bottles in a separate space if you don't want to be filling them after school and you want to fill them in the morning. You're probably going to want to have them in some space to remember to do that. Now, you could also just have them in your backpack again, and it'd be just part of your kids' routine to remember to go into their backpack, check to see if their water bottle's full, and then fill it up in the morning. So yeah, that works. Anyway. Other things to keep in a separate space. Obviously, probably you're not going to want to keep all their jackets and shoes and stuff in their backpack. So you'll need hooks, a shoe mat, or a rug to think of for that. The backpack itself is going to need a hook, right? So definitely have a hook that is like a designated space for your child's backpack, and you can pull the whole school vibe and just put their coat right over the top of it. They'll know the drill. They do it at school, right? Some other things that you might want to consider having in a separate space, again, like a spot for a folder. We just have like a little metal rack that's hanging nearby where we come in from our door. It's actually on the side of a kitchen cabinet because our back entryway is where we enter, and it's right next to our kitchen. So that just works for us. It's kind of right next to our calendar and stuff like that. Artwork. This is a big one. If you have littler kids, they get artwork sent home, like friends send them notes and drawings and all the things. And sometimes it's so important to them, even though it's just like a scribble on a piece of paper. So have a space for where you're going to put artwork. We used to hang ours on the fridge. And then our fridge was just getting like way too covered in artwork, and I couldn't even like open the doors without knocking it off, and the magnets were falling. It was just a whole thing, and I was just sick of dealing with it on our refrigerator. Also, we had a baby crawling, and he likes to eat paper now, so it just was, getting in the way, and I just, he would eat their artwork, and it was just annoying. So we decided to create like a little hanging space with string and some clips, and that is where all of the kid artwork goes. They know that they can go hang it up in their art corner, like that's where their display is. So that's what's working for us right now. But once upon a time, the refrigerator worked, and it was just fine. And that's also right in that same area. So it was easy for them to like pull it out of their backpacks and put it up. But, they can take a hike now across the house and hang it up in a different area, and it's still going to be working just fine. School library books are another thing you might want to consider having in a separate space if they're not going to go right back to school the next day. We personally like to have just like a hanging, like a little tote hanging in the same area. It's on a hook right next to all the coat hooks and stuff, and we keep our school library books right inside of there. So they're right, this tote is right next to the backpacks, and we read it once or twice and we'll just put it back in there until the day it needs to get sent back to school, and that's that. One thing to suggest here is definitely if you frequent your local public library, keep those books separate from your school library books. So don't combine them in the same tote. You will make an error. So just keep those separate. Get 2 totes. I don't care. Just keep them separate. Okay, lunch box. You might want a separate space for your lunch box. We do not keep ours in our backpacks because our kids are, I don't know, I think lunch boxes are gross. They always need a good wipe out every day, especially if you have like little kids. Anyway, yeah, and technology I mentioned before. If it needs to be charged, then you're going to have some sort of charging center for that in some area of your home. Take-home bags, I don't know, sometimes school teachers send home like homework or take-home bags or something like that with stuff in it for little kids. We don't get that, but if you did, you would probably want to have a space for that. You could maybe consider having just like one big extra school tote or something, and that's where you could keep like take-home bags and library books and stuff like that. Maybe you could all just combine it into the same tote, Okay, and then the other question this was still part of our questions, like where is this item going to be kept? Is it going to stay in the backpack? Is it going to go in a separate space, or is it going to go in the garbage? And then we talked about we had the 3 questions so far. What is coming home? How often is it coming home? And where is it going to go? Okay, and then the next and last question is, how can your child help take care of each item? So what is going to be your role as the adult, and what is going to be your child's role? So in other words, is a task your job or your child's, right? When it comes to like the things that are coming home. So this is going to kind of depend on what you have coming home and the ages of your kids, but I'll give you just a couple examples. And this is kind of an area where you're going to have to kind of play trial and error. And if you're irritated about a situation, or something's just not, you're gonna know if it's working or if it's not working. Give it a little bit of time if you think it's a good system, but don't give it 3 months of time if it's still not working after a short little bit of time in back to school. Then make some adjustments. Okay, so some examples. Again, depends on the age of your kids, but here are just a couple. So folders. For us personally, my kids take their folders out of their backpack and they put it, I said this before, they put it into the designated area. We have just like a metal mailbox folder thing that's in your back entryway specifically for school folders. So my kids take it out of their backpacks if it's in their backpack. They kind of empty their backpacks, generally speaking, but so the folder though specifically comes out, it goes into that area. They don't touch anything inside of their folder. They know that. I'm pretty strict on that because I'm like, if there is important paperwork in your folder, I need to get it and I can't have it lost or mixed in with your artwork or something. So you don't touch anything out of your folder. You put it into that box and I empty everything out of that folder. If there's artwork and stuff in there, like if they want to show me something, I'll call them. I'll tell them that. I'll be like, I'll call you over when I'm emptying the folder and you can be the person that gets to show me the cool thing that you made or whatever. Okay, so their job is to take it out of their backpack and put it in the folder space. My job is to empty that folder and put it back into the folder space emptied. Okay, and then in the morning, my kids have another job where they take the emptied folder or the folder that has, signed paperwork or whatever is needed, and they take that folder and put it back into their backpacks in the morning. Okay, backpacks. So backpacks are another example. So my kids' role is that my kids will empty all the things that they need to out of their own backpacks. So usually that's something like folders, waters, lunches, snacks and sometimes some like extra things like library books, artwork, and whatever, etc. My role is really nothing with their backpacks on a regular basis. Obviously, every so often I peek through them just to like clean out anything forgotten or any garbage, and I give them a good wash twice a year, but like, and once in the winter break and once at the end of the school year. So, but for the most part, I do really nothing with their backpacks. They empty everything out of them so that I have them. Waters. Waters is another kind of example I'll give, and then I'll do lunch boxes. So waters, my kids' role for their waters is that they refill their water bottles every day after school, and they put it right back into their backpacks so it's ready for the next day. My role is on Fridays, the kids put their waters in the sink instead of filling their waters and putting them back into their backpacks. And so on Fridays, they'll put them in the sink instead, and I will give them a good wash and replace them back into their backpacks for Monday. Lunch boxes. For us personally, I want our kids to just take their lunch boxes out of their backpacks and put them onto the counter because they're kind of gross. Eaters. I mean, not all the time. We actually only have one that stays for school lunch, and she's just fine. She's not like that messy, but she's a pretty clean kid, so I could imagine if I had a messy kid, this would be like extra gross. So the age of her, she's going into only first grade this year, and so it's just, she's little, and sometimes containers don't close all the way all the time, so it's fine. I just would rather deal with the mess, so I have her just take her lunchbox out of the backpack and put it on the counter, and my role is to do kind of everything else. I'm gonna wipe it out and repack the lunch for the next day. So yeah, those are kind of where we split roles in a couple areas for coming back home from school and our school drop zone and what we're doing with our items that are coming home on a regular basis. So yeah, you're just going to kind of have to, think about those questions. You can get some things prepared before the school year. I highly suggest having at least a space for where backpacks and sweatshirts and stuff are going to get hung up, where shoes are going to go, and where folders are going to go. Those are kind of like the main things. And then have a system set up for what your thoughts are around the lunch boxes and stuff. Those are kind of the main areas, and they're going to get you through the first couple weeks of school if you think about them in advance and you're prepared enough, So, try to get something set up for those, and then adjust as needed as you learn what's going on and what your kind of like items are that are coming home regularly from your school for this specific school year. So it'll change year by year depending on the teacher. So you'll just kind of have to. And some things will stay the same, of course. Like maybe every school, like every school grade, they'll go to library once a week, and that's just always going to be the thing. So, some things will be the same, some things will be different every year, and so you're just going to have to always kind of readjust. But having some basic systems set up and where to put things is going to be a good plan to get prepared, and you can just adjust some spaces as needed. Or for example, like I was talking about the artwork on the refrigerator, like we needed to make a change there. And so it's fine. We have a new space for that. You're just going to have to kind of figure it out depending on the ages of your kids and what they're bringing home. So you'll get it worked out. It'll be all just fine. All right, so next week we have a fun podcast, All Right Welp podcast episode that'll just be kind of recorded on my phone and uploaded with no real editing. And the following week we'll be back to talk about what to have prepared so that your child can be successful getting out the door for school. So we're going to talk about the opposite part of this school drop zone kind of area, like how are we getting out the door and what can we have ready so that that process is a little bit easier, although, it's never flawless. So just go into it knowing that especially the first couple weeks of school are just going to be a little bit of a doozy. Everybody just needs to get into the routine. But having some things and some thoughts prepared, it can certainly be helpful. All right, so that is about it. Drink water and eat snacks, everybody. Talk next time.